Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamillah Lodge. I am the Director of Communication and Development at Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, and I am your moderator this afternoon for this webinar. We're going to be talking about customer service, response approach, and reputation. And today I have with me an illustrious group of people who are familiar with dealing with customers, in all sorts. So I'm going to introduce them, and then we're going to get started with the question and answer session. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Paynter. He's the owner of Pedigo in St. George's. So if you're looking for an electric bike and you want to rent one or purchase one, that's your guy. Go check him out. We also have Maaida Coleman, founder and administrator of Maaida, whom all of us know. And she's also the manager of Second Look Thrift Shop. We have Dennie O'Connor, who is the owner of the Airport Concession Stands, Snorkel Park, Whitehorse, and Beach Boys LTD, aka Tobacco Bay. And also we have Marico Thomas, who is the owner of 4-Star Pizza and also owner of numerous things. Hopefully he'll share with us some of the extra things that he's going to be working on as we have this conversation. But he's a serial entrepreneur and restaurateur extraordinaire. And we also have joining us, hopefully, fingers crossed, is Glenn Wiltz, who is the owner of Polished and Bungalow 56. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully Glenn can join in on the conversation once he gets on. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Hello, hello.
Hi. So, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about customer service today, and I consider all of you experts in this field based on what you do for the community, based on what you do in your businesses. And so I think having a conversation with you and sharing with us and some of the viewers what your practices are will help them as they look to better their customer services practices. So the first question I want to ask you is about managing customer expectations. Now, you guys know that saying, the customer is always right, right? So my first question, and I'll start with you, Dennie, because I see you first, is do you think that the customer is always right, and why or why not?
Thank you. That's a pretty easy question. Yes, we're going to say the customer is right. What you do in front and what you do behind the scenes, you have to not take things personally. I mean, you have to understand that, you know, this person is having a moment, and you have to try to understand to not just take it in, but understand to listen and say, hey, okay, we're going to correct the situation. We're going to make it better. So long story short, I do feel the customer can be right. You've got to be careful of customers that try to take advantage of the situation, which you will definitely find. So.
Yeah, there's some out there. So Marico, what is your opinion of that?
Yeah, no, the customer's not always right. So the customer's a customer, and we have a relationship, and our relationship is that it is our intent, our goal, and in some instances our promise to provide products and services, and there's an expectation on the other side of what that is going to look like. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a difference between that expectation and the reality. And as Dennie said, and I'll expand on, it is absolutely true that we have to then manage that space in between. But when that from a customer's always right perspective, I have a bit of a problem with that one, mainly because two things. Number one, I believe that when a customer is upset and saying something to you in a negative way, that if you can take the emotion away from it, there's something to be gained. Because even if they were not correct, there is something in that statement that you can use to become better. If you have the courage to find it, and if you can steel yourself with however it's being delivered. That still doesn't mean that they're right. And in the age nowadays of people and keyboards and making their statements through an online service or services, people have unusual courage that they will not have when they're in front of you face to face. And that then amplifies the way in which they may feel that they can communicate, and the things that they would actually write or say that their mother will cause them, the mother will blush, turn over in their grave, or would just actually make you want to go upside their head. And we actually have to manage all those things in some way where, number one, we can maintain our sense of pride in what we do. Because if we start, I think, if I start first with the customer's always right, then that may also mean that our employees are always wrong. And our employees have to have the respect that is deserved of them as they go about doing their result. A perfect example in a pizza delivery situation would be a customer orders online or orders on phone. It doesn't really make a difference. Let's say they order and the order is somehow late or wrong. They call the store back and they're yelling at somebody who had nothing to do with actually taking their order. That person doesn't deserve to be yelled at. They should be. We have to find a way to cause that person to be respected, because otherwise, what happens, right? The staff and people don't want to work anymore. They want to leave because now they're exposed to something that really had nothing to do with them, not isn't their fault. And even if it was their fault, does that mean that somebody can lace them with profanity? Probably not. So we do have a responsibility in trying to set the expectation with customers and also set that expectation with our staff of how to handle that, and also with the managers, so the managers don't duck, because sometimes it gets really hot for the manager too.
So you said a whole lot of stuff, and we're going to talk about some of those topics, especially around social media and how you manage that. But I want to give you a chance to respond, Michael, about your experience working with customers, and you're in a very service-related industry. So what's your opinion of the customer being always right? And then also maybe touch on how, in an instance where the customer isn't right, how you kind of manage that expectation and solution.
I'll say a modified version of that is correct would be an informed customer is often right. We find that you get a lot of times customers come in and they would have incomplete information. They would act very strongly on that incomplete information, and it is on the business owner, it is on the staff to bridge that gap of information that is obviously lacking, and that requires your staff to be knowledgeable of your product and service. And you have to bridge that gap somewhat very, very amicably to a customer who may not necessarily be very warm and fuzzy, but may be quite abrasive, and then it's appropriate for the staff and for you as the owner to be able to bridge that gap and inform the customer of whatever it may be. Something could be as simple as a client may have a reservation in the morning, and they decide to show up at 8 o'clock, not reading the reservations for 10 a.m., which can be an issue, and that calls for not calling the customer direct and telling them to 8 o'clock, or is it the customer's fault for not reading the email that is at 10 o'clock? So those times where you have to kind of like bridge that gap and say, oh, they may be there bringing the doorbell, so you have to decide, okay, am I going to leave an hour early to kind of bridge that? And you would. However, you want to inform them the next time it's at 10 o'clock, or you may want to do an overnight rental and just inform them of the other products and services in which would be able to give them a better experience next time.
So I want to say, before I talk to you, Maaida, because I think, there's a lot you can say about this, because you're on the receiving end, so the customer is venting through your platform, Maaida, right? But I want to talk about the whole idea behind the customer is always right, and what I heard you guys say. So Dennie, I think like you won awards for customer service and tourism and all that kind of stuff. So from the perspective of the customer being right, could we interpret phrase as in the way you resolve the issue?
Right. We've got to be very careful, because as I said, we don't know what people are going through. Your staff, as I said, as soon as you give them the empowerment of that, hey, you know what, customers are not always right, they may take advantage of the situation. And I'm finding that often so. And as I said, yeah, we know what's right, but in my eyes, I say, hey guys, the customer's always right. Take this personal issue, because half of the time it's personal. They're dealing with own issues somewhere else, and it's reflected onto the guests. And so whatever it is, handle that situation, solve it. Be humble. Don't lash back at them or feel like, oh, that person, because take it behind the scenes and say, oh, that person was this, that, and get it. But when you're out there, make them feel of importance. Because like I said, customers are very important to us.
Yes,
they will keep us going. know, and I'm glad Majesty's List is on here. Jesus, you know, as I said, I love her at the same time. You know, up and down roller coaster. You know, with just trying to understand. So for me, you know, I'm very passionate when it comes to making sure that the guests, you know, feel of value, of importance. You know, it's no longer about food and drinks. It's about the whole experience.
Right.
You know, trying to make this person enjoy this experience so that they come back more. So
Right.
sorry.
And so that's I guess what I'm trying to say. So for those who are watching, don't leave thinking, no, you're not right and we're not doing this. I think the underlying message when you say the customer is always right is that you want them to feel that they are, or that they're being heard, and that their issue, whatever it is, can be resolved. So even in the instance like what Michael said, the appointment was at 10 and you showed up at 8 and now you're mad at me. That's a clear example of where they got it wrong, but you don't want them to feel like they got it wrong. Like, what are we going to do to try to meet halfway or meet in the middle so that at the end of the day, you're happy, you're smiling, and you maybe potentially can bring me more business and that sort of thing. So Maaida, welcome to the party. So you are at the other end with Maji's List. So people go in there, and a lot of times, especially for small business owners, they're like, oh my God, Maji's List, they're gonna ruin my business. What is your opinion when people come on your platform to vent or to share their experiences, whether good or bad? Like, what do you have a sense of whether you feel like the customer is always right on the receiving end of a lot of those complaints?
Okay, well, the reason why I started Majesty's List was because I thought I was right as a customer, right? So I personally think that the customers are always right. I think that a lot of the employees here in Bermuda, they don't understand the customer service vision. And so a lot of them are untrained and unprepared to deal with customer issues. And they have to find out exactly what the customer wants. They have to understand what the company wants from the customer. And I think a lot of them, they just don't know. There's some sort of miscommunication that happened in the process of the service. There's some sort of miscommunication. And that is the reason why the customer believes that he or she is right. If whatever the issue was dealt with prior to them coming back to the company or going to Majesty's List, then it wouldn't be an issue. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, so I'm kind of like talking over myself.
We all friends here.
Yeah. So so it's just Majesty's List is a lot. When a small business owner comes into the group complaining about Majesty's List ruining their reputation, I always tell them it's because.
Oops.
Uh-oh. We lost you for a minute, Maaida, so. Maaida is frozen. She was dropping gems too.
Hey, while she's going and to step back, the audience here are more on the business side, not on the customer side.
Yeah.
So this nature of the customer being always right is really rooted, for me, my perspective about it is really rooted in the change and how people are see entitlement. I think the internet and maybe parenting styles nowadays have enabled people to feel more entitled, and that entitlement goes beyond whatever we as owners may sometimes promise or offer. And when that actually happens, when the customer's expectation exceeds what we actually are defining about what we say we're going to offer, the customer then, when they feel that they're right, they are wrong. They're absolutely wrong. Now, the trick to that is, do you want that customer to come back and give you money and buy your product in the future?
Yeah.
Which is how you handle that gap, right? So this idea of the customer is right and wrong and how you handle it, there's all different ways to handle this philosophically. But the reality of it, and we all have different sort of corporate cultures or ways that we teach and train our staff and what we tell them about the communication that's going to happen with our employees. And some people manage that line really hard. Some people have a real fat one that's very gray and very loose. But it really still comes down to what is that gap? How do we want to handle that gap? And what is your expectation now that this difference has been identified? What do we want out of it?
Right. So Maaida, we lost you for a minute, and you were just in the middle of telling us.
I think my Wi-Fi dropped. Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi dropped. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So you were saying that when businesses come on and talk about the negative reviews and things like that, you want to go ahead and finish that thought?
Yeah, when they come on and they talk about negative reviews, I honestly say that it's something that you miscommunicated. There's something within that negative review that you missed, that the small company missed. There's something there that it was a miscommunication on their part. And I always say, apologize, because to me, the misleading came from the company. The customer was misled some sort of way. If they think that how they should have gotten a refund, why do they think that? Is the print on the receipt too small? Did the employee tell the customer no refunds? I mean, there's something there. You just have to communicate more. There's some sort of miscommunication. So, yeah,
Thank you. Trust me, I have a whole section on that. You wanted to add something, Dennie?
No, I was gonna say I get very nervous with Magister's List, but I'm much better now. I used to really like take it too hard. Nervous because as I said, it's like your haters are just waiting for just one bad comment, and then all of a sudden everybody just wants to jump in. It's sad because you have your haters are just waiting, and it's just it is damaging to the business. But I'm learning to get better at it, etc. But it's still out there, and it's a very dangerous platform, to be honest.
So what I would say to that is, and I'm a glass full kind of girl, so I'm always looking at ways and opportunities, right? Hi, Glenn, welcome to the show. I hope you can hear us. I don't know if you can hear us yet, but what I say, and I'm kind of on your team, Maaida, when you say that, what is it within that complaint that you missed? Is there an opportunity for you to switch that customer? And Marico, I think you do that very well, right? Because people you're absolutely right, Dennie. Some people, they won't talk to you to your face, but let them get to their computer and they're ready to tell all the stories. So in that opportunity, in the same way, it's an opportunity for the customer to share their negative review publicly. It's also an opportunity for you as a business owner to share your solution publicly, right? And then when you do that, it creates loyalty among others. It also creates an opportunity for people to be like, oh, this person really does care. They care enough to come on here and say, what is it? What happened? Call me. Let me figure out a solution for you. And I've seen where people have been like, yes, this is what happened. This was the result. And as a result, whatever the case may be. You wanted to say something, Maaida, before we go on to the next?
A negative review is always an opportunity to gain more customers, always. Even from the one negative review, you have the haters that come, that follow. Why are they haters? That's an opportunity to reclaim those haters, and see why they're upset and solve their issues. And then from there, you gain even more customers. It's always an opportunity to gain more customers.
And I agree. And as I said, I'm getting back at it. But, as I said, first dealing with that.
I know.
And business owner, and all you're worrying about is your bills and everything else. And then you got extra burden on top of you. It was very nerve-wracking.
It is,
Yeah. So what I would say, and I think sometimes people fall into this issue, right? Like, so in Bermuda, we only have certain places where you can get certain things. And I do think that sometimes business owners, and y'all can yell at me if I'm saying the wrong thing, but sometimes business owners can become complacent because they are the only option, really, right? So if you want this thing, then that's it. But going back to my initial question is managing the expectations, because a lot of you were focused on that. It's like, what was communicated to the customer that they didn't receive, and how do you manage those expectations? Like, what do you do? What tools do you use? What communications do you have with your customers to help them to understand exactly what they should be expecting from you, so that when you deliver it, they're not let down? And I'll go to you, Michael, first.
Well, we do use our social media as our primary means of communication to know policies, say cancellation policies, weather policies, and whatnot. However, I would say more or less, just leaning back to my prior career in bank, you learn very fast that customers aren't one to read at all, and you would have to almost say it to them as if it was their first time. And one of the things in which has been very beneficial in going from financial industry into that of the leisure industry is that it's not very often you're going to get a client calling you talking about how great your debit card is, or your online banking is, or how great your credit cards are working. I'll say about north of 80 to 90% of all customer feedback in the financial industry is quite negative, and so we're all trying to fix it. On the flip side of that, being in the leisure entertainment, I'm very blessed to deal with people who are just coming to me looking for a great time. They're coming for fun, or maybe the worst case scenario would be damaged bikes and those type of repairs. But ultimately, you're just bringing them back to their happy place. So as long as you're able to communicate what can be done, and oftentimes I find that you should under promise and over deliver is the best rule of thumb for operations. You can tell them you're going to get it done Friday when you know you can get it done Thursday. That's an okay policy to have.
Okay, under promise and over deliver. So how do you manage those expectations, Dennie?
I'm more face to face. I'm always on the floor, in the presence of. I like to be around my establishments, and people are so quick to WhatsApp you, go online to social media, simple phone calls. So, but for me, I'm actively on the floor there to make sure that we're moving forward in that sense.
Okay, Marico, same question.
Yeah, I would say meet them where they live. So if somebody calls on the phone, if somebody writes, I write back. If they want to go online and talk through modules lists, I have, to Dennis' point, it can be a terrifying experience, but the reality of it is, I do believe you can get information from a child. So no matter how someone communicates to you and where they communicate to you, I'm always looking for the opportunity to see what we can do better. And I remember on multiple occasions, I've spent either the good part of a day, if not more than a day, talking back and forth to somebody through modules lists as a commitment to have them understand. And it is not easy, because you have to talk through this medium in a way where you don't know what their cultural background is, you know what their religious background is, you don't know if they're black or white, whether they're like hot or spicy, whether they're male or female, and you have to figure all that out as you're having a conversation. And you can't really tell what's behind in the back of their head and what's affecting their filter as they're having this conversation with you. But through time, and if you don't make it be about you, it can get there. And in my experience, just as a by the way, people watch. They do. Everyone's watching. They're either watching because they've got some popcorn and they're just looking for the entertainment. They're looking for who's going to smash who, or they're looking for the education. But they are looking, and they do want to know. And they will talk about it because, modules list is a great place for entertainment if you're wired that way, right? So while it's scary, I'll tell you that it is also something to Ms. Coleman's point, that can become an asset to you. And I chose not to. I chose to ignore the rise in my blood pressure as I was hearing what was being said to me online, and try to deal with it in a way. If you were face to face with somebody that I loved, what would I say to you? If you were my daughter, how would I talk to you? And through that, I think everybody sees that, and to the point that now, if anybody says anything bad about us, they're calling, they're tagging, and they want to make sure that we are able to say something back. And not just that, I've talked so much now that people out there understand what I'm going to say and say it on my
And
behalf.
they say it for
They
you.
say
Yep.
it for me. I'm just like, thank you, Jesus, because the amount of time, it takes a long, long time. This is not a one sentence, one paragraph. I said what I had to say, and later for you kind of a thing. I'm sticking in this until you get it, and I'm going to try every way I can for you to get it, because it's important that you get it, because I have all these employees that I'm responsible for, and if I don't cause you to understand, I'm going to have to lay somebody off, and that person deserves to have an employment, and I have to protect their employment. And me protecting their employment is having you understand what we're trying to do, or dealing with your issue in a way that is hopefully respectful both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree. I've been one of the ones with the popcorn saying, "Ooh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?" But I'm saying that, and that's why I invited you to join us, because I think it's important for business owners to hear and understand Modus List is here and it's not going away. And for all of the negative reviews, there's some great positive ones out there. I mean, people post on Modus List to find any and everything, right? It's become this thing, this vehicle, this tool now that I think that's what we should view it as, right? Yes, negative reviews are going to come, but so are the positive ones. But the way in which you handle those kind of reviews, Marico, is what I want to share with everybody who's listening, because it is your baby. You are passionate about your business that you're running, but like you said earlier, sometimes you have to remove the emotion and, like Maaida said, find what the actual problem was. Why are they even on Modus List? Why are they even sharing this with everybody? They're looking for a solution, and if you as the business owner are able to help them reach that solution publicly, then you're winning, right? You're winning back their loyalty, and you're also winning new customers who are like, look, I love the way he did not just hide the hand in the sand and say, you know, that's it, sorry, whatever, go shop somewhere else. Sometimes there's nowhere else to shop, right? And so now you're cutting your nose off to spite your face because you're just angry about the experience that you had. So speaking about social media and how you use that, I know, Michael, you mentioned that you're using social media to communicate with your customers. Are there any other ways in which you can identify what the customer now wants? So I know you as business owners can set your expectations, but how do you determine or figure out what it is that the customer is wanting, and how does that impact your delivery of service to them? So I'll go with you, Dennie. I saw you thinking.
Yeah, I'm still thinking. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you think about that. Michael, you ready?
Yeah, certainly. So we often do talk to, say, hotel providers. They are oftentimes gatekeepers to a large segment of our customers in the tourism side, and so they do set the type of expectations, the type of tours that they will be looking for. In regards to the sales side, we probably talk to more directly, like to the dealers, to their they do surveys as to what type of bikes and what type of features they'll be looking for, what type of price points different customers will be willing to enter in, and also the accessories. So a lot of this will come directly from the actual, say, Pedigree Inc., or even through Google Analytics, where you can kind of get an idea of what the customer would be looking for. However, that certainly does not beat face-to-face conversations with direct customers. That is often going to be the best research you're going to be able to get, and oftentimes see whether or not that will align with the statistics that you're seeing. Because the one caveat is that a lot of these statistics, they're being pulled from North America, and Bermuda does have its own unique customer demographics, and they often do correlate, but they're not always the case.
So Maaida, from the standpoint of you being a customer and you seeing a lot of these complaints that come in, have you ever formed sort of a relationship with business owners? Because to me, I would think that your platform would be a tool, a resource for them to try to figure out what they're not doing right to get that information. Is that an opportunity for them to reach out to you and be like, can you share with me what people are saying and that sort of thing? Do you see that? Is that something that you would do?
I try my best to not be the middleman.
Okay.
Because if they're asking you for help, then they'll also ask you to help solve a problem.
Gotcha.
Whatever. So I try my best to not get too involved with that. I do advise what's the best way to handle it. I'm not really sure what's the best way to handle it outside of the group. Within managers list, I know exactly what a business owner should do, how to respond to make sure that customer leaves managers list happy. Apologize and then go straight to the inbox. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Apologize. I'm not sure if I don't know his name, but somebody who's very famous for it is the owner of Seaside Grill.
Okay.
Tiger, I think his name is. He does an excellent job when it comes to apologizing on the computer, and then he also leaves the visual. He leaves sometimes if somebody comes to complain about whatever, a meal or whatever, he'll come apologize, and then he'll leave the picture of the dish he's giving them for free. So it's not only just reading, but the visuals also help satisfy the people looking in, and that brings in the other customer. So, and I told him this, like when he first got his first negative review, this is what I told him. I said, you have to also come back publicly on the site, apologize, give your explanation as to why it happens. He always says that how he's going to talk to the employee, and then he offers a discount or something for free or whatever. And it's literally like a whole passage. It's long. So the advice I gave him in the beginning is what I would give other business owners. But I try my best to not give them opportunities and all that stuff. Yeah, get involved. Yeah.
That's really, I just want to speak to that. That's really what I've said first 1 or 2 or 3 times. Is like I felt like she didn't want to help me. I'm like, I'm gonna get my lawyers on this, and this is gonna be ooh, like, what is this about? Why are you trying to destroy me personally? Like, you really
I didn't even know. Who's
like, and but I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's saying that.
Not just help me. Can you not just like help me? Just take it down. Give me a chance to justify, what's going. Let me try to figure out what's going on. All I'm doing
I cannot do is take it down.
Everybody's calling you saying, oh, what's this on Majesty's List? Have you seen this? And it's like, as I said, first, second, and third time was a nightmare. You get used to it after a while. You start getting positive ones, and then you start to find the balance and everything. But it was, if somebody has got a negative review yet, just understand it's going to be a process.
It's a process. And I would just say, just so people understand, all those emotions that you felt, Dennie, you're not alone. Like, everybody goes through that. And I think I understand Maida's point is she's like, well, really, the platform is there. It's really between you and the customer. And I get what she's saying, why she doesn't want to be involved in that way. But what I do hear her saying is that there are ways from her experience of how business owners deal with those kind of complaints. And yes, it hurts. They're still typing and you're like, I don't even know what they're talking about. Let me figure it out. But if you go through those steps, I think is what I hear her saying, then whether it takes you some time to figure it out or not, you do have an opportunity to do that. And you heard Marico say, like, sometimes he spends a whole day. He's like, all right, well, this is what I'm doing today. And you're like responding to these complaints. But after having gone through that and coming out on the other side of it, now you know what's required. And going back to my original question, which was how do you find out what the customers want? That's a lot of information that you've now received, right? That's a lot of information that you've received that you can now use to kind of better whatever the service is. And I swear, if you do what the Seaside Grill is doing, it's going to convert customers, right? Majesty's List converts customers. People go on and be like, where can I get a good meal? Well, Seaside Grill or White Horse, right? And so in the same way as I think it could be a negative, it definitely creates opportunities there to convert those customers. Now, I have a question for y'all. Do you think that there's such a thing as an ideal customer?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, what is an ideal customer?
They pay, what is an ideal customer? Again, this is a business forum, so, an ideal customer would be somebody who buys your most profitable item, does it quickly, and leaves happy, and tells everybody they saw for the week about the experience they had. That's it.
Okay, that's one definition. What do you say, Dennie? Is there one?
Same with Marico. I mean, a repeat customer is always a positive customer, one that just comes back and just enjoys life. It, is making the most out of the establishment, for itself. So, yeah, it's a loyal customer. It just doesn't make no fuss of anything, doesn't pick at nothing. Just as said, just enjoys life for what it is, So.
What do you say, Maaida?
I say an ideal customer, they're also easy to attract. They're very easy to attract. It takes very, very minimal effort to keep them. They naturally become loyal, and they're recurrent buyers. So that's what I would call a ideal customer.
Okay. Michael,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a chance to answer, and then I'm gonna say something.
My ideal customer, I would say one that snowballs. So first they may come as a renter, and then they come as a renter with multiple members in the family. Then they might do a tour, then they'll purchase a bike. So as it will snowball, they'll come from a small purchase, and it'll just snowball into a larger repeating customer, and eventually they become bike owners, and it's a transition. That specific customer can be pretty much dressed up as a local customer, because before we used to be predominantly a tourist-based business, where 90+% of all of our customers were tourists. And then after the pandemic, we did a complete 180 where 80-90% or 100% of all of our customers were local, in particular last year, and they turned out to be the absolute best customers, because they'll come once and they'll come again, and they'll come with their family, then they'll buy their own bike, and you couldn't really ask for a better customer who's here and stays here.
So let me ask you this then. Based on all of your responses, it sounds like you identify your ideal customer after they have become sort of a loyal and they've bought things from you and that sort of thing. How do you identify who that person is before they actually purchase from you? Or maybe I misunderstood. I see you shaking your head, Marico.
Yeah, well, I think your follow-up question addressed what I was going to say. So how do you identify your ideal customer before they are your customer? Is your question?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think well, if we were in a classroom setting, then it would be that you did some research, you understand your product mix, you understand what you're selling, what the price point is, you understand the different demographics in terms of where people live and how much they spend in their communities and how much they make, and then you take those different pockets and then you apply your business to those pockets, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then a lot of it's just luck. A lot of it is just like, whoa, I didn't expect that, and it's absolutely luck, right? You go up there, you do something, you're like, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Well, that did not meet my expectations, and my expectations are surpassed. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness.
I mean, I think that's interesting because from a standpoint, you're business owners, right? And so you have a set amount of money to market. You have a set amount of money to try and attract clients to your places of businesses to buy whatever it is you're selling. So how do you then leverage those funds to be able to maximize the impact that you have, right? So when you mentioned demographics, identifying what they want, doing a little bit of research, I think it's important. So that's kind of where my question is coming from. How do you suss out those people in the local market? Who are those people that you're trying to reach, and how do you reach them to get them to come to your establishment and become that loyal customer that you're saying that they're singing out the praises to? How do you do that? Like what things do you have in place that allow you to do that?
Well, I work in second thrift shop, and I can tell who the ideal customer from the first day they come into my store. I see how long they're in the store. I see how free they are. I see if they're walking around, if they're chatting, and then I see how much they spend. And then from there, when they come to the table, because even though I'm the manager, I'm also the person in the forefront. I'm also servicing them at the counter. Then I see how much they chat, how much we talk. And then once that's done, I look at who's coming into the store, and it's mostly islanders, from other countries, like Filipinos or Jamaicans, because they usually buy in bulk and they send back over to their countries. So what I started doing was I started learning their language. I know some people may think like, oh, why are you learning? This is an English speaking country or whatever. But I learned it. I started learning Tagalog. I started playing their music. And then I started telling them, tell your friends. I just wanted
no.
atmosphere.
We lost
I
your.
started making a friendly. Oh, you lost me again? She lost me
No.
again.
We lost her.
No, we hear you.
Go
Oh.
on from what she was saying. It sounds like Maaida. So
Huh?
to just, she's saying there you are. You're coming back.
Okay.
We lost you when you said you started learning the language.
I started learning their language. I
Playing
started
the music.
playing their music. They started bringing me dishes, and then I started giving them discounts. I started giving them discounts, and I started saying, and I can afford to give discounts because we pretty much get the items for free. So it's okay if I give a small discount. I started giving their friends discount. Bring a friend. Your friend will also get a discount. And that's how I made most of the Filipino community coming. That's their store pretty much. And then I started doing the same thing with the locals, started playing.
Okay.
I asked, what kind of music do you like? And we just became it's like a friendly atmosphere. And then now people just come there for therapy. Even if they don't spend $1, they come for therapy. And then they also tell me now what they dislike about my competitors. And then
Okay.
I've moved from there. Yeah.
So that's an interesting strategy. Dennie, do you do something similar? I mean, I know a lot of yours face to face and in person, but that's a way to identify.
For us, we can't really identify, so we just treat everybody ideally. It's in time that you find out, that these people may not be the ideal customer. But when we get people that come through them doors, and a perfect, example for me is at Tobacco Bay. When people come through them doors, we don't know who's who because everybody's dressed in beach attire. Whereas
Right.
somebody's coming and thing, they may be in a suit and tie, you may treat them a little different. But we have to treat everybody like they are of most important. And so we don't know who's ideally until, we go through the process again. It's, one customer at a time. So, and then from there, you just start to get your repeat and your loyal and your people that, are looking out for you and going and going online and saying positive things about you and just encouraging others and stuff like that. It's just all this happens in time. So, long story short, we don't know who's ideal, but we just go through the whole process.
Until they are.
They are.
So once they are, what kind of strategies do you employ to keep them that way?
Loyalty programs, discounts, specials, doesn't hurt to give a drink every now and then, or it's just little things, but you have to keep all of these things, not just talking about giving away. It's just, you find the value for the money and the experience that they are having. And it's just in time.
Yeah. Okay. Marico, what do you do? Once you find out who they are and now you know who they are, how do you keep them coming back?
I will try to meet the expectations of them. Definitely all the things that Dennie said apply, but on a basic level, do what you said you were going to do.
Okay.
And oftentimes, that truly is enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say, I'm not giving out no freebies. That's what you said.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, 4-Star has done plenty of discounts and specials and all that sort of stuff. 100% of our customers don't take advantage of them, even when they're available.
Wow.
So
okay.
That is not who your this whole idea of 80-20 rule. If you can figure out who those that 80% of your customers are, 20% of your customers are going to create problems. Right? 20%. That can be a lot. It sounds like a lot, especially if they're yelling at you at the same time or making noise in your ear at the same time. But 80% of your base is going to be loyal and stick with you through thick and thin. You have to treat them well, but you also have to define what well is. So those expectations are met and the entitlement doesn't go too far. And once you have that, you're good. Now, a lot of times when we are new entrepreneurs or we have a new business even, part of our struggle may not be that we actually have the policies, the standards, the marketing tactics, how far we want to go even when we deal with a problem, that may not be properly defined. So that when we have to then deal with a customer who's upset, or even whether they're on margin list or not, we feel bad and we have anxiety and all that sort of stuff because we aren't adequately prepared, or we don't have the tools that we should have developed ourselves to be able to successfully and confidently have this conversation.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, right? Is what tools do you have, and how important is it to have them in place, right? Because we're talking about customer service, we're talking about managing expectations, dealing with bad reviews and all of that. But what you said, I think, is hugely important, especially for new entrepreneurs and startup entrepreneurs, as it relates to having a plan. Like, what is your plan, and do your employees even know what that is? Can you talk a little bit more about that, Marico?
Yeah, you know, having a business plan is great because it allows BDC to give you some money, right? And once you've secured that money, your doors are open. Now it's a whole different thing, because now you have to have a manual. You have to have an operations manual. You need to have something written down that you can use to replicate. I definitely appreciate what Dennie said earlier about being on the floor and having face-to-face time with his customers, and I appreciate that. Michael, you have one location?
Michael, you have
you operate out of
one location?
We operate out of one location, however, we're quite mobile. We have trailers located at multiple hotels and have a van. So while we have one shop, we are operating island-wide. So
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the distinction. So there is something fantastic about having one location and being able to, or even if it's two, and being able to be present and have that FaceTime and be able to go there and see and smell and get involved in such a way. We have, and this is not by any means a boast, it's actually a difficulty. We have about 150 employees. We're about to hire 50. So we're gonna have 200 employees through, let's say, over 10 locations. I don't have the ability to be there. So that means that I've got to find a way to take the philosophies that I have about life, about service, about management, and find a way to convey them through different types of managers, whether they're Bermudian, non-Bermudian, male or female, tall or short, black or white, attitude, no attitude, because sometimes you don't find the right employee, right? But somebody still has to be in that position to perform that function, otherwise your business can't perform itself. So we actually have to have things written down. It is hard to write stuff down because a lot of times when we get into business, we start from this emotional place. If I want to talk about a restaurant, it's somebody enjoyed my food, and then I decided, well, you know what, maybe I'm gonna sell some at night on the weekends, and people buy it, and then all of a sudden, you want to get into, go to BDC, and Jamillah says, I'm gonna give you some money so you can go ahead and do this and have a good life. Yeah, so then what actually happens is now you have staff and you have process, you have to have structure. I remember when I opened up the first location and then the second and the third, I didn't really understand management. I understood how to manage one location, but managing one location isn't the same as managing multiple. Because I was there saying the same thing, running to the next one saying the same thing, running back to the first one saying the same thing, running back and forth, because I didn't have the processes that allowed me and then the staff, other people inside the location, to have all these things cascade like a waterfall all the way down. I was home the other day, and I've been doing this for 30 years. I was home the other day and I ordered a pizza for delivery. It wasn't a pizza, it was something else. The driver came to my door without the food in a hot bag. I didn't want to kill him. I wanted to kill the manager. Because while that person did what they did, how did the manager not understand that this is something that goes against us and contributes to having cold food or colder food? So if, years ago, I would have screamed at the driver. I wouldn't have screamed at the manager. I didn't scream at the manager. I wouldn't have taken it up with the manager. Now I'm taking it up with the manager because there's a process to causing all of these things to work like a Lego tower. It's like a Lego tower. These bricks have to be inside there. Otherwise, all your responses tend to be a bit more, they hit you in your heart a little bit more because some of these things aren't there.
Right. I mean, I think that that's an excellent point. And Dennie, I want to get your opinion because you have all of these moving pieces, I think. But at the end of the day, they all fall within the customer service tourism industry. And so your opinion about how you navigate that space, you're great at it. Like seeing you in action is like watching a movie for me anyway. How do you get the rest of the staff that work with you to share your kind of passion for service?
You know, finding the right staff is a challenge. It's an everyday challenge. You know, we don't get it right. They don't get it right in the beginning. Right now, I'm very blessed to have a pretty solid core management team, and that's for the airport and that's for Whitehorse. But you know, that's just happens over time. You know, and I have to mention, you know, thank you for Fremont, you know, because obviously Fremont's closed. There was quite a few stellar staff that were up there that understands service and understands value and understands, you know, how to meet people's expectations. You know, I was up there for 10 years, you know. Before that, you know, Marico was my boss. And yeah, Marico would tell you straight up, and he will put some F's into you real quick if you didn't get it right. You know, but this is a process, and I thank him now. I didn't understand. I just thought he was nasty, but you know, he became my mentor and etc. You know, but you know, but now I have
therapy session, Maaida. That's what you was talking about.
Now I have 84 staff. And now I have 84 staff, and I'm trying to understand how Marico is able to, you know, keep her and things together, because it's just insane. I'm right now, you know, I have 2 little ones and I'm going around to every location, but I shouldn't have to go around to every location and be there, you know, I should say 24/7, but I don't have the right solution yet. And it's a learning process again for me, you know. So as much as I can say, oh, it's I'm doing this, and that, it's just an everyday experience right now. And I think finding the right people to do the right jobs is very important. Having that support team is very important, but no one will take a business too hard like yourself. You know, as I said, you want to be there, you want to know what's going on. As soon as you heard some type of, you know, people are just sitting at the dinner table and you could be home with your kids and somebody's like, oh, this and this and that. Oh, I tear the ass out of, excuse my language, I tear into people because I'm like, why is it happening? You know, some simple little things that shouldn't be happening, you know. And it's just an everyday rewarding, painful process. Put it that way. Really.
Okay, all of those emotions, all of it. I mean, I think you guys are, was somebody, you were going to say something, Maaida?
I just wanted to ask, do most businesses in Bermuda have their customer service policy actually written down for their employees to follow? Because I feel like employees are inconsistent, you know, and if they have something to follow, then the service should be consistent throughout.
That's what we think, but as I said, we have all the menus, policy, procedures, everything in place. But when it comes down to that crunch time, it just doesn't seem to go from the menu to the actual person. It's really an experience for everyone. And as I said, so as much as we say that, yeah, we have that, but for some reason it doesn't go from there to the actual person. It's not for. Sorry, Marico, customer service is not for everyone. I need to say that as well.
That is true. Now, I did mention this to you guys, but I did some polls to try to get the viewers involved. So the first question was, do you know who your ideal customer is? So Deshaun, you could put it back up again and let people answer, give them time to do that. But then I want to go back to what you're talking about in terms of having that customer service policy, right? Because I agree with Marico that it is important to have it written down, but writing it down and having the team who can actually implement it are 2 completely different things. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you identify the talent that you need to be able to communicate that kind of customer service policy or culture, if you will, because really it's your business, it's your baby. You have a vision for how you want it to be run, but oftentimes the people who are responding on Magic's list had no interaction with you as the owner, right? they had an interaction with your employee who may or may not have had a good day that day, who may have glazed over that manual that you gave them. So yeah, you see the poll?
Yeah.
So can I check?
Oh no, it says organizers and panelists don't
Oh,
vote.
guess that answers that. All right,
Yes.
so those who are watching, please view, trying to get some little interaction going on. We'll have a Q&A session later so that you can ask your specific questions. Okay, that's good, Deshaun. So I want to talk a little bit about identifying that right talent and how you guys do that. So Marico, you've had over 30 years of experience doing this. So I'm gonna start with you and then we'll go around. It's not just the policy. We know you have the policy. We all agree it should be written.
Yeah,
but
so yeah, I got you. So there's a certain, if you're listening to radio and television, the government's going to say that there's a certain number of people that are unemployed right now. And you would think that, and also that the economy is not necessarily doing very well. And you would think that with those two things, then there would be a motivation amongst unemployed people, or at least candidates and applicants, that once you hire them, that they will perform in a certain way.
mm-hmm.
Put a pin in that for a second. I was driving the other day and I was listening to the radio, and on the conversation was somebody talking about sports. And this person was saying that children nowadays are not prepared to be athletic, let alone to become athletes. And the problem is that they are home using their iPad or whatever the case is. The thumbs are working totally fine. The eyes are working pretty fine. But they lack hand-eye coordination and even body movement because they have not been moving as a child, going outside, playing ball and all that sort of stuff, the kind of things that I might have done when I was young. You guys are kind of young, so I don't know what you were into, but we don't have that same foundation. So therefore, when somebody was coming to him as a coach, he had to go back and teach fundamentals that he did not expect that he had to teach.
Mm-hmm.
If we translate that to the employment right now, the employment unemployed people, and even Ms. Coleman, but thank you, sorry. Ms. Coleman's statement around what she expects as a customer of us as people that provide services. We're hiring staff with the expectation that they can perform for us,
mm-hmm.
right? Just because they said they could, or because their resume might have said something. I have cleaned up many a person's resume to get rid of them, by the way. So, Dennie, when you hire them, thank you very much. So the whole resume thing, that doesn't really count. It doesn't at all. So what do we have? We have people that necessarily are not ready to provide service. They believe they confuse service with servitude. They don't want to do it. It doesn't feel good anymore. We also have people that may be good-natured and they actually want to and are insufficiently prepared because they did not receive a certain kind of home training, because they weren't told about they have a different expectation with social norms around how a relationship should work between two people. And when you have these basic tenets that don't exist, you can have all the manuals you want and it wouldn't make any difference. You also have nowadays people that have different stresses. So you got all these people right now. Mental health is supposed to be a really big thing now because COVID-19 has just either caused an explosion in terms of what people think of their own mental health and also how they communicate about it. I used to kind of say this thing about staff to my managers. You know what a Teletubby is? A Teletubby was this thing on TV. My daughter's 25 years old. When she was younger, these Teletubbies were on TV. These little yellow, blue, green, and orange things. One had a triangle and a square, and they didn't speak. It was just no on the TV. It drove me crazy. I couldn't handle her watching it. But I never forgot this experience. So I actually think of two people two different ways: Einsteins and Teletubbies. Any one person can be both. Our problem as managers are, do we know right now when Michael was in his Einstein moment or if it's in his Teletubby moment? Because if we talk to him like he's in his Einstein moment as a Teletubby, he's going to be pissed. And if it's the reverse, we're going to be pissed. And ultimately it ends in failure. So if we have a situation where most people are unprepared or underskilled, despite the resume, to actually do the work, are we prepared to do the kind of work that has to be done to prepare them to get to the standard that they should have walked in the door with. And that's a huge problem, right? So now when somebody goes inside Martha's List, they kind of go hammering at us, and then we turn around to the employee, we kind of hammer at the employee. The employees kind of look at you and maybe thinking I did my best, or what's wrong with you, because they don't get it. They read the manual. They know that they're supposed to bring the food to the door with the hot bag, but somehow something's not clicking in their head. It could be their entitlement. It could be they don't like the process. Do they really care about how hot the food is when they take it to Ms. Coleman's door? As long as they get paid, they're probably happy. There's all these kinds of things. So it's not just the manual, but you have to have the manual.
Right. So, Michael, I'm going to go to you. Now, do you have staff, I'm sure, that work with you because you do tours and all that kind of stuff too. So how do you identify that right person? Because like Marico said, the resume could say one thing and it could look fabulous. And then you meet them and you're like, I am speaking to a Teletubby. How do you navigate that process?
Really, the responsibility is on the manager to put your customer in the best position. I've got staff who are excellent customer service. They know the product, they're great with time. However, they couldn't put air in a tire. So they're terrible mechanics. So I make sure that they're not in an instance where they have to diagnose anything that is outside of their realm. However, I have excellent mechanics. They can fix anything. However, put them in front of a camera, in front of a customer, and they'll just gloss over and they wouldn't really know how to be able to perform. So it is my position, is my responsibility to put my staff in positions where they can thrive. And I always try to make sure, if I'm not there, I make sure I have my other staff member who is there, who is excellent customer service. And if I'm attending to, say, mechanical work, I'll make sure my mechanics are doing other stuff. So I make sure that as a responsibility of myself, know the strengths of my staff and ensure that they're in positions where they can succeed, because ultimately it's my responsibility. And also to give them the training and discipline. And I think I've, listening to Marco and Dennie, there's been times where I've dropped a few F-bombs in them, and I found that that is highly ineffective. And so I found that a more appropriate way is building them up, building them internally, like actually taking a completely different approach and boosting their ego. Sometimes you got to say things that are mildly not true in regards to their ability, but building up their confidence is the most important thing that I find, because then that will again snowball, and then they'll be better able to serve the customers, and they'll have that confidence in front of customers as well.
So I think what you said is important, because I think when we create an opportunity for employees or staff to feel empowered, and you mentioned this early on, Dennie, about empowering them to do certain things, and if they think that the customer is bad, that might be empowering them to have a negative kind of response. How do you manage the two, right? You empower them to make decisions, but you also want them to be able to communicate your kind of value system as it relates to how customers should be treated. How do you manage that? And that's to you, Dennie. Yeah.
You know, when it comes down to your employees, it's a constant day-to-day, hour-to-hour situation of just working with them and trying to make sure that they are doing the right things. Unfortunately, again, you have to be there. I'm one that likes to be in the presence of, you know, trust my management staff to a point, but I feel like in order for them to really understand what I went through, I need to try to show them or teach them really what customer service is about. The attention to detail is really important. Just, you know, making sure that you're seeing things before guests actually do. And it's not just about service. It's about the experience. Just making sure that, you know, everything around you, you know, whether the telephone is ringing, that it's being answered, the food is coming out hot, the drinks are being handled in a timely manner. It's just really being there. Again, I don't want to be, and you know, coming to Marico's, you know, how Marico's speaking, I'm not going to be able to, you know, if I keep growing into this direction. So, you know, it's really just about, you know, being there for your staff right now and understanding.
So, I mean, I wrote lead by example based on what you just said. So you, like I mentioned earlier, are very good at it. And I think, you know, when you're looking for talent, you're like, okay, you're not afraid to say, to do it, I should say, right? So you're still at the part or life cycle of your business where you can actually get in and they can see, oh, this is how he engages with this customer. This is what he does. So maybe let me emulate those things or those traits that I see him doing. Now, Maaida, you mentioned, because you are managing this thrift store too, so you mentioned some of the techniques that you use to identify your ideal customers. Now, I don't know if you have someone that works with you as well, but if you do, or if you did, how would you identify the right person, like who's going to kind of share that same kind of technique that you have used and has been successful to get people coming into the store?
Well, the people that I hired were actually customers.
Okay.
Yeah, they came so often and so much, and then they started asking, oh, can I work here? They were so pleased with the service that they received, and they weren't working at the time. They actually could work there. So they saw my example, and they knew that was the expectation from them. So it was pretty easy for me. But I had a question. Do most business owners here in Bermuda, when they hire someone, are they expecting the people that they hire to come fully trained in customer service? Or are they offering some sort of customer training in customer service after they hired this person? That's one thing I always wonder being in the group. That's one thing I always wonder.
I'm just gonna sit here, Maaida. You go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. That's not what I.
But that is
because the thing is, I had to train some of the people that I hired, even though they knew what was expected of them. I still wanted to make sure that it was embedded within them and they understood the culture of the thrift shop. You know, and as they were serving the customers, I would stand there by the side and I was like, okay, that's something you can't do. Smile, say good morning, say good afternoon. Don't argue. If there's something that you cannot handle, forward them to me, give them to me. So I still had to train them, even though they worked at HSBC, they worked at insurance companies, they worked many, face to face. I still had to train them when they came in, just a little bit, just to make sure that they knew.
Do you? So Michael, do you expect the people that you hire to already come fully trained, or do you expect that there is going to be some additional work that you're going to have to do to make them, I guess, up to your standard?
I'll expect them to have relatively strong interpersonal skills, like strong communication skills at the very least. It would be up to me to bring them trained up on the products and services, because I do know that the products and services of my business is quite unique, and there's very few people that would have experience in those. But the very least I'll expect is interpersonal skills. The customer service skills, such as being timely, what to say in certain situations, that will be trained on the job.
Okay. What about you, Marico?
We train people. We don't have the luxury of anybody else doing what we do the way that we do it. So we always have to train every single person. But training is an interesting term because there's a lot of components inside of that, right? There's the transfer of information, and some people think that is training. There is the demonstration of the activity. Some people think that is training. But in reality, when you sit back and you look at what that employee is doing over time, sometimes it's not just a matter of training. I'm addressing Ms. Coleman's initial question, which is there an expectation that a person comes inside the door already baked, or do we need to do something with them?
Right.
Do something with them, because there's going to be a cultural difference. There's going to be, here's a perfect example. Non-Bermudian example, actually. There was a time when I hired somebody from a Pizza Hut store, a Domino's Pizza store, and also like a Papa John's store of the United States. 3 managers hit Bermuda at the same time. All of them very experienced pizza makers, but all of them do it very, very differently, because the culture and the way in which that business executes their process was so different. Then they came here, and all of them were incredibly committed to what made them successful from where they came, and they were not committed to what it causes them to be successful here in this environment, in this business. And the training, even though the transfer of information happened, even though the demonstration happened, they still reverted back to what they felt comfortable with and what they knew how to do. And they did that sometimes in your face and sometimes when you're not in your face. It's not that they were trying to be deceitful or wrong. It was their conditioned behavior for 20 years of their own success. And ultimately, I had to fire every single one of them.
Wow.
So the idea that the customer is always right, the idea that the employee is always right, and the idea that we as business owners don't train or we're deficient, it's just not that simple. And that's where it really gets really interesting when you're trying to talk to somebody and have them understand the difference between their expectation, their entitlement, and even our promise.
That's a good point. So like based on your example, it sounded like those three guys should have been perfect. They should have come here and hit the ground running. But like you said, there's a culture change. It's different. And even though those three were both, all three of them were pizza houses in the States, each culture was different. And then they just couldn't fit into the culture that is Bermuda. So I think that's a good point. It was a great question.
I'm not necessarily saying just the Bermuda versus America culture. I'm talking about the corporate culture, that culture inside of that organization.
I guess that's what I mean. But I'm saying it's Bermudian because 4-star is Bermudian. So whatever culture you built for your organization, they were having difficulty kind of releasing that and capturing this new culture.
So part of training is also part of development, right? Not part of training. This is the idea that the track that you're on is about training. It's really not just training, it's also development, because beyond that training is how do I cause that person now to be effective and efficient for us?
Right.
For us, not just that we transferred the information and we demonstrated and that you actually understood the demonstration. I find that to be insufficient.
Right. I'm just looking here. So we're at 1:48. We're going to end at 2. We're going to end on time. We lost Michael. Hopefully he can get back on. And Glenn, I'm sorry, I don't think we were able to get him back on. But I do want to address some of the questions that may be in the chat to give you guys time to answer some of the questions from the audience. I'm going to put up one more poll before I do that. So the next poll is number 5. Should you have a customer service philosophy that you use throughout your organization? And I think you all agreed that you should do. If I got that wrong, Dennie, because I saw you looking like, So the question is, should you have a customer service philosophy that you use throughout your organization? And this, to me, it speaks to like the culture, how you want your employees to be interacting with your customers. How do they figure that out? All right, let's go to some of these questions here. Okay. Since post-COVID, companies are investing a great deal on improving technology and tools to assist CSRs, customer service representatives, and increase productivity of staff. How do you see this playing for Bermuda, and what suggestions do you have for companies to support customers' digital transformation journey, like a website, self-help, digital interactors via social media, etc.?
Yes, automate as hardly as possible. Labor is expensive, labor is difficult, the training is hard, the transfer of information is hard, and we are always going to need staff. But there's going to come a time when we're going to become short-staffed once again if we aren't already, right? Bermuda doesn't have enough people. Bermuda talks about where it needs to go and what it needs to do. And as Fairmount South Island Princess comes back online, and as the place in St. George's maybe picks up, becomes successful, and as the marinas bloom, and if Bermuda can truly become that successful destination, we're all going to have struggled to find employees again. So yeah, you know, whatever you think you have right now and you're happy with it, you'll be short-staffed soon, within about 18 months.
Lord. Okay, you know I'm a half full kind of girl. So Dennie?
No, Marico said it all.
He did. Okay. What about you, Maaida?
Yeah, there's really no other way. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. We have another question here from Aisha Spencer. How do you address the professional complainers? I didn't even know that there's a such thing, but apparently there are people who do complain professionally. How do you address those, Marico?
Add on.
If you only have 10 customers and this is one of the 10, maybe I get rid of them. If it is one of, I'm dead serious. There are times when you just cannot be my customer. Please go someplace else. You know what? Dennie would love to see you because he has the time to deal with the professional complainer. I don't. Check you later. If this person, though, is maybe part of 10,000, you might decide that, you know what? I'm going to make it be my mission to turn you around. I'm going to give you free everything. You know why? Because if I do, then you're going to go on Modulus and tell me how great I am because I gave you everything for free. Hopefully you don't tell everybody else, but then you're just going to praise because you're wired that way. So decide how you want to deal with your lemons and your lemonade. There's always a way, but can you afford it?
Right. Okay.
Right. One of these days I'm going to get to Marico's level, but right now, as I said, I would just deal with it head on, listen to what the guest, has to say, but not give away everything. But as I said, there are definitely professionals out there that do this to ensure that they are surviving on their side. But as I said, I'm not on that level yet. I always love the way Marico talks because that confidence is where I want to be. But I'm not there yet. I'm going to slowly get there, but right now I'm just dealing it, one customer at a time, put it that way.
Okay. Maaida, how would you deal with a professional complainer? I'm sure you probably get to see some.
Yeah, a lot. It depends on who follows them. If they're loud and they have no followers, let them go. Ignore them, block them, whatever. But if they're loud and they have lots of followers, then I would fully agree with turning them on your side because then they'll get all the followers to follow you. So it depends on what kind of following they have.
Okay. Customer service needs to be taught from primary school level. Does government have any training schemes, plans to do this? I guess that would be more for me. The closest thing I can think of would probably be like what the BTA does with the CTAs and training and stuff like that. Maybe you guys who have gone to primary school here can speak to what kind of teaching that you did or learning you did when you were in primary school. I don't know.
I actually have a problem with the question. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Dennie, you go ahead first, please.
No, go ahead, because go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a problem with the question because customer service needs to be taught at home. We raise these, badass kids and then we send them out into the world and expect that they're going to become good employees of somebody else. And that right there is a problem.
Yeah.
Customer service starts inside the house with what you transfer to your kids, because you can then send them out. You can then send them to the CTA. You can send them to me. You can send them to Dennie. I can't change what you do. You're still doing this crap with them at home. They're not going to listen to me.
Yeah,
it's just a responsibility on the government. Come on now, that's not fair.
It starts at home, right?
It absolutely starts at home.
I agree with that, but I also agree that we do need that Stonington that used to be there back in the day and stuff. We do need some type of tool. But I'm agreeing with Marico with the mindset. Definitely starts at home. But when we get out there, I loved going over to the hotel school. Being that hands-on experience, getting out there before they actually went into the real world. I just think that you need to find the balance of both the home and the government education in that sense. So if they can bring back.
And I would also add that I do think that having that practical experience when it comes to, like you said, if you know that you're going into the tourism industry, then I think it is necessary to have some sort of training program in place so that those who are entering that industry can have that kind of experience and understand the training. Now, whether it starts in primary school or not, I don't know, but certainly I do think that government does play a role once they get to the level, because Bermuda is still a tourist jurisdiction, right? So we want people to have a positive experience. So you have to invest in that. And I think that they're doing that now, but I'm not sure if it's going to be at the primary level. I have 5 minutes left, but I have a question from Michelle that says, what would the panel say is the minimum customer service standard of business and employees alike, whether written as a policy or not? What's the minimum?
The minimum what, sir?
What's the minimum level customer service standard? What would your minimum be, whether you have it written down or not?
Customer service standard?
Yeah.
I think they're asking, what should theirs be? Is that what they're asking?
What is yours?
I don't have a minimum. I have what works, and different things works
Okay.
in different businesses. So what a minimum should be, you know what, listen, I'm involved in a medical practice. The expectation of a customer walking into a medical practice is different than a customer walking inside of a restaurant. You have to figure out what's going to be appropriate for your environment, for your instance. You know, you can have a restaurant on the beach like Dennie has, you can have a restaurant in the pub like Dennie has, and those two things aren't necessarily the same. You know, you might not be okay with coming in your teeny itty bitty bikini inside of Whitehorse. You know, there might be something wrong with that. So you got to figure that out and be appropriate.
Okay, so it should be appropriate for the industry you're in, for the type of business that you're running, and
location,
location.
For the part of the island. I'll tell you what, St. George's is not the same as Somerset. It's not the same as Warwick. So you got to figure all that out. Yeah, it's not the same.
You have anything to add, Dennie?
No. I mean, as I said, it just comes down to what your values are, you know, in your business and what you're expecting from your staff. So minimum value should be an amazing experience, you know.
Okay.
So I'm expecting everybody to leave and want to come back, not just coming and just eating and leaving, you know.
Right. Maaida?
I think all companies pretty much follow the basic when it comes to customer service, like what's bad customer service. I don't know if that's what she means, but I think we all know not to have customers waiting for too long, not to use like negative language, and not transferring calls again and again. Pretty much show empathy towards the customers. Yeah, and instead of answering the customers directly when they call you, and instead of answering the questions there, you direct them to a website. That right there is something that shouldn't be done. And then good behavior and bad attitudes. These are all basic customer service things that all companies follow. So I don't know. I guess that would be the minimum of things not to do. Yeah.
And then adding those little specific touches like Marico alluded to, like Dennie alluded to, it's like communicating what your culture and your values are, takes it, you know, above what that minimum standard is. Now I have a couple of statements that I'd like to share. Arika says, I think it's important to acknowledge that not every person is your ideal customer. It's important to know who your ideal customer is and your target market. In Bermuda, everyone is not your customer, and the most successful businesses understand this and focus on that group. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm not, as I said, I'm not there yet, but eventually I will agree.
Yeah. The issue really for Dennie, I guess, is to consider opportunity cost. The opportunity cost principle is if you have $1 and you have one apple and you have one orange and you decide to buy the apple, the cost of the apple is the orange because you only have $1 to buy one. So when you decide to buy one, you buy the other. The same thing is with your time. So if you have the time to spend on that professional complainer, then great, there's no problem. But if you don't have the time, then you are then spending that time on that professional complainer instead of maybe spending time with somebody else who might be better for your business.
Got it.
So you guys, we are at 2 o'clock. I am respectful of all of your times, and I want you to leave us with your personal views as it relates to customer service and something that you want the viewers to take away as action points or guidelines to help them maybe better their customer service situation. I wrote some stuff down just in case, but Marico, I'll start with you.
The customer's always right until they're not. We need to have our stuff written down and organized, and it needs to be in a way organized in such a way that we can communicate it to others, our employees, as well as to the customer. Once that happens, then we have the job of managing expectation and entitlement. You do that, you're good. Oh, don't shrink. You must move forward. When the complaint comes, check yourself, put your emotions on the side, move forward in it. It's mucky, it's messy, it's tiring, and it's time consuming, but it's necessary.
All right.
Just agreeing with Marico. Just be careful with your emotions, you know. Got to move on, you know, not take this so much too hard. You know, I say that, but you know, I went through the same situation. I took things, you know, really hard, you know, and as I said, but I'm grown out of it now to understand that, wow, I shouldn't have been like that. But this comes with time and experience, and you know, you're not always going to get it right, and you know, we can all say do this, do that, but you actually have to go through the motion sometimes to really come out on the side. And you know, one of the other things I want to say is, you know, listen to understand, don't listen to reply. You know, as I say, empathy, you know, show it, and but don't give so much to it, or don't give so much of yourself away. You know, you got to be strong. I agree with that. But you got to listen to understand. 'Cause some people just really just want you to listen, and and just give them that apology and move on. Don't be that person and say, I'm not going to apologize to this person. And I've got some staff that are like that is just unbelievable. Like, we have just made the situation so much more worse. While I was in the right, and that's just where I tend to say, don't give your staff that empowerment, because the second that they think that they're right, then it becomes a much harder thing for the owner, you know. So just overall, just keep smiling, keep moving forward, and keep positive, and keep a positive mindset. Bring the right energy into the place. Thank you.
All right. Maaida?
To business owners, I would say to never ignore a negative review. Use it as a positive opportunity. You can use it to collect valuable customer feedback. You can use it pretty much just to show your commitment to customer satisfaction. Just show customers that you're there. And then also to consumers, I would say just use mattresses as your way of letting business owners know what it is you want and what it is you expect. So it's like a cycle. So
Oh, you can just call me.
huh? They can call you. Yes, they can call you. Yes.
Or DM or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just call me, please.
I want to share some of the things, gems, that I think you guys share with us. You said, do what you say you're going to do, Marico. So that's in terms of setting those expectations. Remove the emotion. They're going to come. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to service everybody the way that you service everybody all the time. So in those instances where you fall short, or someone might fall short on your behalf, remove the emotion, identify that piece, like Maaida said, and focus on that and a solution to that. Use social media as an opportunity, right, to gain customers as opposed to losing them. Rely on face-to-face interactions as you can. Don't make it about you. Identify partners to provide what your customers may need. Yep. Don't confuse service with servitude. I thought that was a powerful one. And I think that speaks to sort of what's happened with the tourism industry, and maybe not so many young people being interested because they confuse the two. So service is not servitude. Because you are willing and wanting to satisfy a customer doesn't mean you are in servitude of them. Identify the right person for the job. Michael shared that with us. So if you know someone is good into face-to-face, then maybe that's your person. That's who you focus on. That's who you give the extra training to. Lead by example. Got that from you, Dennie. And it's not just about the service, it's about the experience. And then Maaida, you said sometimes your customers can end up being your employees. And I take that to mean that when you're identifying or looking for the right talent for the job, it may be that person that you see every day purchasing the things from you, or you may see them in a social setting and you're like, yeah, I need this person on my staff. So with all of those gems, I want to thank you all for sharing your insight, your wisdom, and your time with us today. I appreciate you very, very much. And I want to thank the viewers for joining in. This will be recorded, so if you registered, you'll get the recording, and then we will also have it up on YouTube, and we're going to post it on our social media page, and we'll share it with all of you as well. So thank you again for joining us. I hope it was informative and insightful, and that you got some useful tools from it. Thank you guys.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.